Well, welcome to the Monday version of the advising session. My name is Seaman, and I am the Director of Advising here at DePauw. We're coming to you live from campus, and we look forward to welcoming you here on campus in a couple of weeks. I serve as Director of Advising, Director of the First Year Seminar Program, and Director of the Record Scholar Program, and I also teach in the Classics Department, mostly courses on ancient history. I did my graduate work at UCLA, and my field of research is ancient warfare. I'm joined by my colleague, JC Lopez, and JC serves as the Dean of the First Year Experience. Probably you have received emails from him. And so I'll just start by saying that before I get to the presentation, we will have a question and answer session at the end. So you're welcome to type in at any time into the chat a question that you have for me. And if by chance I don't fully answer that, feel free to write in a follow-up question for that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Bear with me. Okay, so today I'm going to mostly talk about graduation requirements, as well as the course selection process. And if you have questions about those things, you type them in. You can type them in now or type them in later. A couple of just points on overview of the graduation requirements. We require 31 credits to graduate. You may have courses credits already when you arrive if you've taken AP classes in high school, or if you've had some international baccalaureate courses that count for college credit, or if you've taken high school classes at a college nearby and gotten credit. You'll want to make sure that you send those transcripts to the registrar's office. They'll go through it and then insert the placements online in a what's called e-services. Some of you are probably familiar with this already. If not, I would ask you to at some point become familiar with e-services off our website. And you can look under placement results there, and it'll let you know if you've gotten placement. If you have any questions about that, or you think you should be due credit from an AP exam or something else, then you can just contact the registrar's office at some point, and they will be in touch with you about that. We require a minimum 2.0 grade point average. That's a C average in order to graduate. And 15 of these credits must be taken on campus. We like to say that 1/3 of the coursework that you take at DePauw is in what we call general education, or distribution requirements is the technical term. I'm going to go through those. You do have a choice in which and how to fulfill that requirement. So 1/3 in general education. You know, that's one of the great advantages of a liberal arts education, is that you will be well-rounded and graduate with knowledge in a variety of fields. 1/3 of your coursework will be in your major, and then 1/3 in whatever you want. So again, this is another advantage that you wouldn't get at larger schools. Often you can have 2 majors, for instance, if you want to pursue a second major, or 2 minors, or in addition to your major, study abroad for a year and still be able to graduate on time. So keep that in mind when you go through the course selection process. One of the courses you'll be taking, of course, when you get to campus is the first year seminar, so that's also required. But now, getting to the distribution requirements, we have 6 courses in what are known as liberal arts foundations, 2 in the arts and humanities, 2 in the social science classes, and 2 in mathematics and science. So you'll want to take these 6 courses sometime over the first 2 years on campus. We'd like to have this completed by the end of your sophomore year. Arts and humanities courses would fall under a range of departments like English, classical studies, history, philosophy, and the like. There are more. And social sciences are, of course, economics, political science, anthropology, sociology, and a number of other departments. And then mathematics and science, biology, chemistry, physics. However, there are certain courses in other departments that fulfill, let's say, the math and science requirement. If you are if you like logic, for instance, which falls in the philosophy department, that also will fulfill the math and science requirement. Also courses such as Introduction to Psychology, Introduction to Computer Science. There's even a course in anthropology that fulfills the math and science requirements. So you want to pay attention to the page where you choose your courses. So here, maybe some of you have seen this page already, the course list for first year students. This is where you're choosing your first semester courses. And if you, let's say you're looking at the ancient Roman world, for instance, in my department, you can click on that, read a little description, and you'll notice that this course fulfills the Arts and Humanities requirement. That's the AH there in the parentheses. And I'll just say that these 6 required courses must come from 6 different departments. So we don't allow, if you really like history, you can't fulfill both arts and humanities courses by taking 2 different history courses. All 6 of these must come from 6 different departments. And again, you fulfill these by the sophomore year. If you can get it done by the first year, that's great. But certainly by the sophomore year, you'll want to finish it. And again, after this semester is, when you are choosing your courses in the following semesters, what you'll do is, instead of using this page here, you'll actually go to what's called the schedule of classes. And I'll show you how to get there actually. If you go to our home page and you go under current students, click on that up there, current students, and just to go down here to academic resources, and underneath that you find the schedule of classes. This will be the schedule of all classes offered in every term. It's most up to date for fall 2021 and winter term 21. So these 2 are updated. The future semesters will be updated as courses are selected by the faculty that they will be teaching. So let's say you're going to look at, well, let's say fall, if you're going to be adjusting your schedule, which you'll have an opportunity to do, you would click on Submit, and here's a listing of all courses offered in the fall semester. And you'll notice there's lots of information here. You have the department. So let's go down to, let's look at a history class, for instance. Here's European Civilization 1789 to the present, History 112. If you want to get a description of that, you can click on this History 112. It'll take you right to the description of the class. If you go across here, you'll see that it's offered remote. This is a new column we've just entered this semester because of COVID. And you'll see it's offered Monday and Friday, 2:20 to 3:50. It fulfills in arts and humanities. This GL I'll get to in just a minute. And the enrollment at the moment is 5. There's a maximum of 15. That was probably kept down at 5 for the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and in order to make room for first-year students if they want to take it. So there are 10 more posts for students there. Here's the professor, Robert Dewey, and over here you can look at footnotes that will describe for you if there are any prerequisites. For example, here there's no, this is just not offered pass-fail, so you have to take it for a grade. So that's the schedule of classes. You'll be using that if this term, if you want to make an adjustment to your schedule because you want to see if there's an opening in a class that you want to take, but you'll use this in all future course selection in the future for your courses that you're selecting for future semesters. I'll just note one thing, and that is if you look in the schedule of classes and you see that a course like this one here, Human Cultures, Anthropology 151B, this is where it's noted if it fulfills the social science requirement. But you can see here there are some courses in certain departments that will fulfill, some departments have courses that fulfill different requirements. So they also have a course, Human Origins here. I mentioned this earlier, right? There's a course in the anthropology department that fulfills the science and math requirements. So, but keep in mind that again, all 6 requirements have to be fulfilled from 6 different departments. So you can't, for instance, take these 2 courses and fulfill one of the social science and one of the science and math requirements. And history is another department that has courses that fulfill different requirements. You see arts and humanities here and social science, right? Because history can be considered both a social science and humanities. And again, you can track your progress along to see how well you are progressing in fulfilling your requirements in the e-services. So if you pull up in e-services, and by the way, let me just show you how to get to e-services in case you don't know. Let's just go to the home page. And starting again with current students, you would click on that. And instead of going down here to schedule of classes, you just go a little further down here to technology and you find e-services. And if you log in to e-services, you'll see here, and then since I'm not a student, I don't have the same view you do, but you'll find that you can get into your academic transcript. And once you get into that, you'll see your transcript. And of course, this is a transcript of a student who's already had some courses. And you'll see that it lists the courses that have fulfilled the arts and humanities requirement here. This student has taken 4 arts and humanities courses from 4 different departments. So they only needed 2 to fulfill the requirement. They've taken 4. They have taken no science and math. You see there's no courses listed under that heading. And then below social science, they've had 2 social science, Econ and women's and gender and sexuality studies. And so they've fulfilled that requirement. So if this student, I think it's a rising sophomore, they would, yeah, well, maybe not. But in any case, they're missing the science and math. And so I would recommend, if I were this person's advisor, I would say you should consider taking one or both of your science and math courses. And if they're trying to avoid science and math because that's not their forte, then they may, in fact, want to spread those 2 courses out over 2 semesters. But again, we want to try to fulfill all that by the end of the sophomore year. The next category of distribution requirements, okay, besides those 6 courses you have to take, are something we call global and local awareness courses. And the first of these, there are 3 categories of these. The first is a language requirement. Every student at DePauw will graduate with at least 2 semesters of a foreign language. There is one exception if your first language is not English. If you are an international student or even domestic and your first language is not English, you are exempted from this. However, everybody else will take at least 2 semesters of a single language. You can't fulfill the requirement by taking 2 first semesters of different languages. You actually have to get to at least the intermediate level with a full year of one language. Now, you can take the placement test and place into a higher level of whatever language you want to take. Let's say you've had 4 years of Spanish in high school. You could take the Spanish language test, and these tests are available online, most of them, for most languages. You can also, there's an opportunity to take it once you're on campus. And you'll be placed into a higher level, possibly if you do well on the exam. And normally at the end of that test, if it's an online test, it will tell you what level you would place into. And so you can ask to be placed into that class. You can request that. Now, if you've had 4 years of Spanish and you decide you want to skip the exam and begin over again, we don't allow that either. Because you would be a disruption to the class being more advanced. And so the registrar will take a look at your transcript and suggest a class that you would take instead of that low level Spanish or whatever language it happens to be. Now we offer languages. You can take language courses in Spanish, French, Italian, German, Chinese, Japanese, Latin, and Greek. And again, you can track the record here in your transcript on e-services. And here it says this student has already had elementary French 2. So they have more than likely, if they've taken both semesters, they have, and it would say below that you have fulfilled, or at least it would tell you if you have not fulfilled this student, you have not yet taken the 2nd semester. Give you a little warning there that you, and keep in mind also that languages at DePauw are usually offered, first semester languages offered in the fall semester for just about all languages. So if you're thinking of starting over again in a new language, say you want to learn Italian, that you've never studied before, the time to take it is now. So you have this fall for entry-level Italian and next fall. And with Italian, and this is the case of a lot of the languages, the first and second year students are prioritized in enrollment. So once you're a junior, it's not too late to take a language, but it's more difficult to get into the class. So I would urge you to try to fulfill your language requirement early on in your career at DePauw. And if you're going to start a language over again, the best time to do it would be either this fall or next fall. The second category under global and local awareness requirements is something we call global learning. And this is a course that sees the world through different eyes. You will either fulfill this by studying abroad, for instance. If you study abroad for a semester or for a summer, you can earn this credit. If you study abroad in a winter term or a May term, you can earn 0.5 credits, so half the credit each time you do that. Or you can take a course here on campus that qualifies as global learning. And just keep in mind, again, those winter and May term courses are only 0.5, so you wouldn't be able to fulfill the entire global learning requirement with one winter term or May term abroad. And you can note if you're taking a course on campus, let's just look at one here, Anthropology of the Caribbean, Anthropology 290B. And you can see that this course can fulfill either the social science requirement or the global learning, but you cannot, we don't allow you, since these are two different requirements, to fulfill both requirements with one class. Keep that in mind. Lastly, we have Power, Privilege, and Diversity. And again, this is a course with power in human interactions in the United States. So underrepresented groups or minorities, or these are interesting classes to look at the power struggles of certain groups in America. And again, you would see this labeled as PPD in the schedule of classes. So say, for instance, we're looking at Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies 140A, which is Introduction to Women's Studies. You have, it fulfills the requirement both for social science or power, privilege, and diversity. So you would choose which of those two you would like that to fulfill, but you cannot fulfill two requirements, these two requirements in any case. The global learning or the power, privilege, diversity cannot be fulfilled along with the distribution requirement. So again, you'd have to choose one or the other. And you can do that in the e-services again. If you were to look at your transcript in e-services here, for instance, this student who's had Introduction to Women's Studies, and you can see up here in social sciences, this is one of the two social sciences courses the student has taken, along with Econ 100. And you notice this little I here in the blue dot, and this indicates that you can, this can count towards two different things, one of two different things. You would have to either, right now it's counting towards a social science distribution requirement, right? It's listed here. But if you'd like to change that, you see here, if you go down to courses with multiple distributions, there it is listed, and it can be applied either to PPD, or that is power, privilege, and diversity, or social science. It's currently applied to social science. And the way you change that is just click this update button, and you can switch it back and forth. Because, you know, if for instance, in the future, let's say the next semester you take international relations in a political science class, and you now have a third social science class listed here as fulfilling the requirement. You'd want to make sure that that class that you're taking, if it does fulfill the social science requirement, it would have the SS next to it in the schedule of classes. And then it would fall under this category, and then you wouldn't need the Introduction to Women's Studies to be applied here to social science, and you can switch it to having fulfilled your power, privilege, power, and diversity, and it would fall under this category down here, and you would have fulfilled that requirement. And again, you can change that back and forth as many times as you like up until graduation. We also require 3 competencies, and I'll mention these one at a time. Writing is one. This again is a great advantage of a liberal arts education, in that we will teach you to be not only critical thinkers, but also wonderful writers. And we have writing built in across the curriculum, which means that we have all departments will teach you writing. No matter what your major is, you will be a very competent writer when you graduate. But we also have it across all 4 years. So for instance, in the first year seminar, which you'll be taking this fall, there is a writing component there, and it's a specific kind of technical skill that you'll learn. That, you know, obviously it depends on the approach of your professor, but one of the things that we stress is that something called scaffolding. And scaffolding is when you would research the paper, write an outline, and then the next step is to write a first draft, and then to go through that draft with the professor and correct the draft, and then submit a second draft, and so forth and so on. So that's what's known as scaffolding. So you'll learn effective writing, quality writing during the first year summer, and then again in your sophomore year, you'll take this course, another writing class, which is labeled W, which essentially means writing intensive. It's a writing class. Many of these are in the arts and humanities courses. And so unlike with the power, privilege, and diversity and global learning, you actually can count an arts and humanities course that has a W. You can fulfill both requirements, the W and the distribution requirement with that course. So if you look, for instance, in the schedule of classes at a course, again, this is something you're only going to be really worried about your sophomore year. It has to be taken during the sophomore year, this writing class. But if you look at this class, Religious Studies 285A, Wisdom and Parables of Jesus. And it fulfills the arts and humanities and the W requirement. So you can fulfill both of those requirements with one course. And again, that should be done the sophomore year. You cannot, if you end up taking a W class your first year, we won't, it does not fulfill the requirement. We ask that you have at least a full year of courses taken before you can earn credit with the W class. You can take it, for instance, if you for some reason did not take it your sophomore year, we allow you to take it later, but it's harder to get in. Often sophomores are prioritized on the enrollment. So you'll want to. And I always tell my students, my advisees, when I'm advising them, that the fall of the sophomore year, if there's a course, for instance, I taught a course called Ancient Athletics, which was a writing intensive course a few years ago. And if there's a course that really appeals to you in the fall, I would go ahead and take it in the fall, the W class. Don't wait to the spring, because it's a course that you're going to be writing a lot of papers in, and you're going to want to like the subject. And so you may not like subjects that are taught as W courses in the spring. So if you really like one in the fall, again, I would urge you to try to get that out of the way fall of your sophomore year instead of waiting till the spring. The second of these competencies is quantitative reasoning. Quantitative reasoning has a kind of a mathematical component in it, at least quantitative reasoning. You can fulfill this in a variety of different courses. It doesn't have to be a math course. Obviously, math and statistics can fulfill this, but also courses like economics, Introduction to Economics. So, which would also, well, in the case, Introduction to Economics, and if for some reason, when you've turned in your high school transcript, if the registrar has taken a look at it and thought, this student really has not had sufficient math to take a quantitative reasoning class, in their opinion, they will flag your transcript with, if you were to look under competence placements, right, you'll see this in your transcript, that someone in the registrar's office has looked at your transcript from high school and had recommended that, it might be best if you took something called University 101, which is a kind of an introduction to quantitative reasoning and other things, how to achieve success in college. And so that's not required for you to take, but if you see that, you might consider taking that course because it has been recommended for you. And lastly, we have oral communication skills, another advantage to a liberal arts education. You will be required to, usually in the junior or senior year, to take a course that is an S course. And this means that you will be speaking in the course and presenting your own research and your papers to the class. So, and I'll just mention also that we have right over here in Asbury Hall, a center. It's called the Academic Resource Center, and we have tutors and staff that can help you in all three of these areas. So there's a writing center, a speaking center, and a quantitative reasoning center, and they're all managed by faculty. And you can at any time get an appointment and go over, run through a draft of your paper, for instance, and we help you along the way. So you're not on your own. And again, these are all things included in the tuition. So we urge you to get over there early and use these early and often. And then lastly, 2 extended studies experiences. Extended studies include winter term and May term. Also study abroad experiences can count for extended studies, as well as internships. Even a winter term internship can count for this. One of these, one stipulation is that one of these extended studies experiences should be in a classroom setting, and that can mean also traveling. And while I'm on the topic of winter term and May term, I'll mention that winter term 2021, all of the courses that are, really about half the courses we offer, or almost half maybe, are usually travel study courses with faculty, 2 faculty that lead students abroad. We have some very popular trips, one to the Galapagos Island, for instance, which is very interesting with an expert on those islands. When are you ever going to get to the Galapagos Islands, and especially with such an expert? So that's a very popular trip, but we take students to all the continents and every year. However, because of the COVID, all winter term abroad 2021 have been canceled, just as the fall study abroad programs have been canceled. But again, you'll get an opportunity to go abroad if that's what you want to do. And we actually rank very highly with students to study abroad. There's an outfit in Washington, D.C. that ranks colleges like DePauw, and we rank number 4 in the nation. Last time I checked, last ranking that came out, 4 in the nation for sending numbers of students per capita abroad. I'm leading a May term, for instance, in May on a course called Roman and Medieval France. I think that's all I wanted to say about now, and I'll just mention one other thing, which is that we have a center here, the Hubbard Center for Student Engagement. It's right around the corner here from where I'm standing. And we have a lot of staff there that are dedicated to making the student experience exceptional. So we have people who will work with you on study abroad opportunities, also internships, connecting with alumni. They go through interview skills and LinkedIn pages and resume reviews and everything else. So again, that's another thing you want to take advantage of while you're here. Now, the last thing I want to do before we move to Q&A is to just show you a few transcripts of students, some of whom I've advised, and just to give you what an advisor's view of this transcript would look like. So here's a student of mine who is a management fellow, and you can see here, this is a rising sophomore. So after just 2 semesters, they have already completed, you see the arts and humanities. They've had Greek and Roman mythology, which counts as an arts and humanities, also a New Testament course. So the 2 arts and humanities courses are completed. That requirement is fulfilled. Science and math, they've had 4 already, including a few that have been Q, you see here. Calc 2, logic, which is a philosophy class. Remember that counts as math and science, and then stats for professionals. So those are 3 Qs. You really only need 1, but the student who's already in the first year taken 3. Actually, yeah, right, even more actually, because here's your intro to Econ and intermediate Econ. So you see the social sciences have also been fulfilled. This is probably an Econ major, I'm guessing. And this was back when you could fulfill the language by an exam. You can't do that now. So this student fulfilled the language by exam. If I were advising him, basically this student has done very well. One thing he'd consider, of course, he has to take a W class his sophomore year, writing intensive class. So I picked one of those, as well as the Power, Privilege, and Diversity course. But apart from that, assuming he's a student, if this were a student now, assuming they've had their language already taken, then I would urge them to begin exploring either other passions they have, a second major, or to continue work on the major, which looks to be economics. So those would be my advice for that student. Now, if you look at another student here, you'll notice lots of art classes and art history. So they seem to be gravitating toward that field. So I would want to encourage that if that's what they want to do. Only 1 science and math, and a couple of social sciences fulfilling that. No language, so I'd encourage the student to take some language, as well as the second science and math class. And if they were a rising sophomore, they'd also have to take that W writing intensive class. They're also missing the Power, Privilege, and Diversity. So this student is still on schedule. I'd say, I try not to, I would, it's, oftentimes when you see students like this, or students who come in with a very firm idea of what they want to take, I actually did this as an undergraduate. I wanted to be an international business major and came right in full speed ahead, took a lot of international business courses and got a little behind on my general education. And by the time I got to my junior year and had a couple of history classes, I thought, gosh, I sure wish I was a history major. And it's only because I didn't follow the advice of my advisor to take these general education courses earlier. Most students will change their major if more than one time. So you'll want to, here's another piece of advice. You'll want to take courses that you don't just take courses that are useful, that you feel are going to be useful. You have no idea what's going to be useful in your future life, really. So explore your passions, and that's one of the great things about a liberal arts education. We allow you to go and pursue interests. We have lots of students who are double majors in completely different fields, and you can do that here. Student 3, again, we may have seen this one before, no science and math. So again, they seem to be avoiding it. Even in the arts and humanities, 2 history classes. So maybe they like history, but again, you're going to have to take a second arts and humanities course from a different department other than history. Social science has been completed. So here, no language. So maybe they're in elementary too, so they're finishing the Latin and the language requirement. So and then just look at 2 schedules here. And this is something you really don't have to worry about your first semester, because the registrar will place your courses and will place you in courses that are spread out and not all on the same day. This student, for instance, is going to have a rough Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because they have opted to take all their classes on the same days. And one of the dangers, of course, is right around midterms, you may end up with 3 exams or so on the same day. This is going to be a very long day. The student's going to have to drink lots of coffee, I suspect. So something in the future to think about when you're constructing your course schedule. You'll want to try to even it out a little bit like this student here. You can see this is not a morning person really, starting at 10 a.m., but having the courses spread out among all 5 days. And that is the last slide. So I'll just go ahead and put up again the first slide, which has my email, and we're going to open it up to questions. I'll stop sharing here.